What would you do if the one person you could never forget suddenly appeared on your wedding day, married to someone else? This is not just a love story. It's a story about betrayal, destiny, second chances, and a promise made once in a lifetime. Before we begin, subscribe now and turn on the notification bell, because stories like this don't come twice, they happen once in a lifetime. Emma Whitmore stood in the middle of Grand Central Terminal with tears frozen in her eyes while thousands of strangers rushed around her without noticing the way her entire world had just collapsed. The giant clock above the station ticked loudly, almost cruelly, as the text message glowed on her phone screen for the 100th time. "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." 6 words. That was all Daniel had left behind after 3 years together and 2 months before their wedding. Emma tightened her fingers around the phone until her knuckles turned white, her breathing uneven as memories stabbed through her chest one by one. The late-night calls, the apartment hunting, the names they picked for future children. Gone, just like that. A cold winter wind slipped through the station doors as people laughed, kissed, and hurried toward trains while Emma stood perfectly still, abandoned in the busiest place in New York City. She didn't cry immediately. The tears came slowly, silently, like her heart was breaking in pieces too small to notice at first. She walked out into the crowded street without direction, numb and hollow, unaware that fate had already begun moving the pieces of her life toward a collision she never could have imagined. 3,000 miles away in Montana, billionaire ranch owner Lucas Hale stared across endless fields from the balcony of his massive estate. Snow covered the mountains beyond his land, but nothing looked beautiful to him anymore. Wealth meant nothing when silence filled every room. At 36, Lucas Hale was one of the youngest self-made billionaires in America, owner of Hale Enterprises and the largest horse ranch in the state. Magazines called him the Cowboy King. Women chased him. Investors admired him. Men envied him. Yet every night he returned home alone. His father's death 2 years earlier had changed him completely. Lucas no longer trusted easily, laughed rarely, and loved no one. His assistant Olivia approached carefully with a folder in her hands. "The charity gala in New York is confirmed for Friday night," she said gently. Lucas barely looked at her. "Cancel it." Olivia hesitated. "Sir, you already canceled the last 3 appearances." Lucas finally turned, his sharp blue eyes colder than the Montana winter. "Then cancel this one too." Olivia sighed quietly because everyone around Lucas Hale knew the truth. The man had everything except peace. Meanwhile, Emma spent the next 6 months rebuilding herself from nothing. She moved into a tiny apartment in Brooklyn, worked double shifts as a freelance photographer, and forced herself to smile even when loneliness followed her everywhere. Every morning she told herself she was healing. Every night she still checked her phone hoping Daniel would explain why he disappeared. He never did. One rainy evening, Emma received a surprising email from a luxury lifestyle magazine asking her to photograph a high-profile charity event in Manhattan. She almost rejected it. Social events reminded her too much of the life she lost. But rent was due, and she needed the money. So on Friday night, wearing a simple black dress and carrying her camera equipment, Emma entered the grand ballroom of the Astoria Hotel where wealthy elites sparkled beneath crystal chandeliers. She moved professionally through the crowd snapping photos without emotion until the room suddenly shifted. Conversations quieted, heads turned, cameras flashed. Lucas Hale had arrived. Emma looked up instinctively and froze. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit with the rugged confidence of a man born for power, Lucas walked through the ballroom like he owned the air itself. But it wasn't his fame that caught Emma's attention. It was his eyes. Beneath all the confidence and wealth, there was pain there. Deep, hidden pain. Lucas noticed her too, not because she was trying to impress him like every other woman in the room, but because she wasn't looking at him for his status. She looked at him like she saw something human behind the headlines. For one strange second, time slowed between them. Then Emma quickly looked away and lifted her camera. Lucas continued walking, but something about her unsettled him. Throughout the evening, he kept noticing her across the ballroom. She laughed softly with waiters. She focused intensely on photography instead of social climbing. She seemed real, and Lucas Hale had not encountered real people in a very long time. Later that night, Emma stepped outside onto the balcony for fresh air. Snow drifted lightly across the city skyline while distant sirens echoed below. She wrapped her coat tighter around herself and closed her eyes briefly. "You look like someone carrying the weight of the world," a deep voice said behind her. Emma turned and nearly stumbled when she saw Lucas standing there alone. Up close, he was even more intimidating. yet strangely calm. Occupational hazard, she replied quietly. Lucas leaned against the railing beside her. Photographer. Trying to be. And are you good? Emma smirked faintly. Good enough to survive New York rent. To Lucas's surprise, he laughed softly. A real laugh. Maybe his first in months. They talked for 20 minutes beneath falling snow about everything except their pain. Movies, travel, music, but sometimes silence stretched between them in a strangely comfortable way. Before leaving, Lucas asked, "Do you believe people meet for a reason?" Emma looked out at the city lights. I used to. Lucas studied her carefully. What changed? Emma swallowed hard. Life. Then she walked away, leaving Lucas standing alone beneath the winter sky wondering why one woman could affect him more in 20 minutes than anyone had in years. Over the next several weeks, Lucas found excuses to remain in New York. Business meetings multiplied, charity appearances increased, but the truth was simpler. He wanted to see Emma again. He eventually called the magazine and specifically requested her for another private photography project at one of his company events. Emma was shocked when she arrived and realized Lucas himself had asked for her. She tried remaining professional, but their connection grew impossible to ignore. Lucas admired her strength. Emma admired the sadness hidden behind his confidence. Slowly, guarded walls began cracking open on both sides. One evening after work, Lucas invited Emma to dinner. She refused at first. I'm not interested in billionaire games, she told him directly. Lucas surprised her by replying quietly, neither am I. That honesty disarmed her. Dinner turned into hours of conversation. Then late-night walks through Manhattan. Then private jokes only they understood. Emma began smiling again in ways she hadn't since before Daniel left. Lucas began sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. Yet fear remained between them because both carried wounds they never fully discussed. One night on the Brooklyn Bridge, Lucas finally admitted, "The last woman I trusted betrayed me for money." Since then, everyone feels temporary. Emma looked at him carefully before whispering, "The man I loved disappeared without explanation 2 months before our wedding." Lucas stared at her in silence. "Did you ever stop loving him?" Emma hesitated too long before answering. "I don't know." Lucas nodded slowly even though something painful flickered behind his eyes.